This video, I'm going to tell you everything about this speakers, this upgrade, but because I've worked in music shops and heard literally dozens of studio monitors, at the end of this video, I'm also going to share my thoughts with you on a couple of the most common speakers that you will see in studios from budget to mid-range to high-end. All right, let's get going. Welcome to this review of the Quested H208 speakers that I've had in my studio a couple of weeks now. I made a video about getting these and replacing Amphions and MS speakers with these, and many of you have been asking me, so what do they sound like, what it's like, and I've promised to make a video. So first, to cover the Questeds. Are they amazing? Yes. They are by far the best speakers I've heard and had, not only in my studio, but in general. They're extremely musical while being honest. They're not aggressive on your ears. They can go super loud, and they sound a hauntingly weird combination of beautiful while still being analytic. Am I happy that I made this upgrade? Absolutely. This was the best decision that I took in a really long time, and I'm really grateful to George of Fantastic Tales of Pro Audio who turned me on to these speakers. So how do they compare to the Amphion 115s that I had before? Of course, there's no comparison because the Amphion 115s are this big, but from a sound character point of view, I found the Amphions in the long run, even though they're great mix tools, to be too abrasive. Like, I can't listen to them for long hours on end because they just hurt my ears at a certain point. They're great for mixing and as like a B pair of speakers to flick to check if certain things are balanced, they would be great. And if you're in a small room and you're not listening very loud, they're also great, which is how I started with them. But in a big room like this that you want to fill with sound, and with the long hours that I spend in here doing sound design, working on tracks, mixing, mastering, I wanted something that better suited my taste. The MS Blues actually are kind of similar in a way that they're not so forward and so like abrasive. If I show you the size of this room, it's what is it, 6 by 6.5 meters, so too big to fill really with small speakers. And the Questeds, they're like midfield. They're big enough to fill this room. They have dual subwoofers, but the mids and the highs are really smooth and super enjoyable. So I'm really happy that I got these. Would I do this again? Would I buy these speakers again? 100%. They are absolutely the best purchase and upgrade that I've done for my studio in a long time. And I paid 2,000 euros for these speakers, for the pair with refurbished tweeters and mids and crossovers and reconed bass drivers. So they're basically at factory spec. I got all the receipts from Quested who did the work and provided parts. So in a sense, I got new speakers for 2,000. And currently you can buy these in the newer version, which is just vertical. You can get them passive and they're like 6,000 euros for a pair. So I got really lucky. I think looking into this brand is something I should have done much sooner, and I recommend you to also have a look because these things sound incredible. Now, one thing I should say, I did have to EQ these a little bit with Sound ID. I added a bit of bass boost, and Sound ID corrected a few minor frequencies, not a lot, but just a little bit, and it did make them sound better. Especially the low-end boost was needed for electronic music, because even though these speakers are huge, they don't have like a boomy, huge bass low end. They're tuned, I think, to be very neutral and not like super impressive, but that's great because it's easy to add some EQing on your monitoring system to match your listening taste. And here's a pro tip, something that I didn't know for many years. EQing the output of your monitoring system is valid, and if you don't get good translation, do it. If you actually EQ your speakers so that your reference tracks sound great how you would imagine them, then it's going to be much easier to get good translation. So to make this easier, I'm going to go through the mental list of which speakers I've owned and which ones I can recommend and which I would say meh. The first tip, top of mind, that I can give you, a speaker set that is incredible and also has this kind of subdued vibe while translating really well, are the Dynaudio BM6A MK2, which is an older speaker. It's black. It's not the new modern gray ones. I recently saw a pair of these on eBay Kleinanzeigen for 550 euros. They're active. I came this close to buying them because I know the speaker, I know how great it sounds and translates, but obviously it would be a stupid overkill. But yeah, you can get those speakers sometimes silly cheap and they sound great. And in a small room, they would sound quite similar to this without, of course, all the reserves. But I love that speaker. I've owned the Klein & Hummel 0300, now Neumann 03110. I would not recommend those. Even though they do translate quite well, I found them massively aggressive. They have like a titanium dome tweeter. They're super forward. They're piercing as hell. I gave myself like a 5-month tinnitus mixing violins on those speakers, but since then I've said basically metal dome tweeters, I don't touch them anymore. I made the exception for the Amphions because they translate so well and they are cool, but I've come back to saying I much prefer silk dome tweeters, which is why I have these now. Amphion 115s, can I recommend them? Yes, great speakers if you're in a small room and you don't boost them too loud, or if you have a subwoofer with them. Amazing for translation, absolutely worth the price you pay. However, I found them a bit too mid-forward and a bit too aggressive from the tweeters. I didn't enjoy listening to them for prolonged periods of time, even though the results I got with them was very good. MS Blue Actives, these were my previous main monitors. I really enjoy them. They're great for a mid-sized room. You can get these pretty cheap. I see these come up for about $1,000 to $1,200, and they're big. They're 3-way speakers, and you can get them pretty loud. So in my previous room, they were good. It was great, but this room is bigger, so I needed something bigger. But yes, I can absolutely recommend MS speakers. They have multiple other ones also actually in their line. All of them are great. They translate really well. They're incredible to listen to. Very underrated brand. I also had a pair of M-Audio BX8. It's funny, I saw in a BT video recently, he had a whole bunch of these all through his speaker. I don't know if it was the BX8 or the 5s, but like I think they're really fun to listen to. They're super hi-fi, which I can imagine is why he has them next to a pair of huge ATC 100s. But yeah, like that speaker, it's way too fun to be a good monitor. Like everything just sounds great on them as soon as you put a sound up. So you can imagine it does not lead to great mixes. I would not recommend it unless you're just jamming on synths and groove boxes and want to have a nice sound. Then yes, very cool. Adam and Eve speakers, I had them. I had the Adam P11s, if I'm remembering the name correctly. They're reasonably good speakers, but for me personally, I just found it weird to listen to a speaker system. As you know, the tweeter is a ribbon tweeter that basically no one out there has. I don't know how that's supposed to translate, but I found the highs to not feel natural and sound very different to what I was used to, and I did not manage to get good translation on them. I know people swear by them. I think Head maybe also these days uses similar systems, so maybe they've gotten better also, but right now from my knowledge of what I tested, I cannot recommend them. Yamaha HS8, great speaker. Also the HS5, great value. The HS8s translate really well. It's kind of like a default starter speaker. It's one of the best recommendations I can give you after the Denaudio that I mentioned and the MS, and they translate really well. They also have a setting, the HS5, where you can make them sound kind of like NS10s. So interesting speaker, very good. The Avantone Mix Cubes, I had them, did not like them at all. Sent them back. I did have the original Auratones and they were amazing. Like they were so cool to listen to. If you listen to Michael Jackson Thriller on those speakers, like it just blew my mind because you hear basically what they heard in the control room. Apparently a lot of that album was mixed on those speakers primarily, and it's like you hear things you never heard before. They're super cool. I kind of regret that I sold them because they were just such a magnifying glass. ATC 30 or 50 or 100. I've only heard them in some people's studios and in some demo rooms. I do think they're amazing. I think they're kind of similar to the Questeds from what I've heard, with different voicing and apparently more high quality parts that they produce in their own factory. I don't know if that's true, but they're amazing and they're super cool, but I think they're massively overpriced for what they are. So maybe a final piece of advice or what I can share is that if you can't treat your room to a certain degree, and actually that's quite underestimated, this room for example has massive treatment in it to make it sound the way it sounds, but if you can't treat your room and you can only afford like a 200-300 euro pair of speakers, I would recommend you not to get speakers and to buy Slate VSX, which you can get for about 350 euro with the Platinum Edition, which I would recommend you get all the rooms. It will translate way better than any pair of cheap speakers you can buy in a non-treated room. And then just get a pair of cool hi-fi speakers from some secondhand gear place to just use when you're composing to just have fun, but do your mixes on Slate VSX. I'm 100% sure you'll get better results than with some low-grade monitors that are not going to translate well in a poorly treated room. I'm going to go through some Thomann listings to let you know what I think of them and ones that I've already heard. Genelec, great speakers. A friend of mine swears by them. I'm not a huge fan of these metal dome tweeters, but the certain models of theirs do have room calibration built in. And apparently it's very effective, but I personally would not choose Genelecs, although they are older models. The 1031, 1032, 1030 are amazing sounding. They were the reference back in the day, so those you can pick up cheap and they're super super good also. KRK RP5 is a great speaker. The 5-inch woofer suits their 1-inch silicone tweeter very well. I've heard this speaker in a lot of incarnations. It's really good. It would be one of my top recommendations for a starting speaker, and it actually sounds less aggressive and less mid-forward than the Yamaha one. So if you want something that's a bit more subdued, I would go for this KRK. The IK Multimedia Loud Micro, I have it. I use it when traveling. As soon as you send it too much bass, it starts distorting, which is a pity, but of course it's a tiny woofer. It's okay for traveling. I guess it's okay for a B reference, but I think their bigger models is where it's at, and many of them actually include room calibration, and then I think things start to get very interesting with this speaker. Focal, I've heard different things about. I find them a little bit harsh and mid-forward, but they are good. I mean, many people do swear by them, but I don't know enough really to say something about them. You would need to hear these in a store, which goes for any of these recommendations. You definitely need to hear these in a store, or ideally hear them in your room and see what vibes with you. The Audio BM5 MK3, great, amazing speaker. It's on my list of recommended speakers on my Thomann affiliate link. I think with this speaker, you can't go wrong. It's an amazing speaker for the price. It's high quality, it sounds incredible, translates well, has a ton of bass for the sound. A-class speaker. Yeah, these are the louder IK Multimedias that I think are very cool, very interesting, because they're big enough, I think, to be useful in a small room, and they have speaker calibration. Kali Audio, I've heard really good things about. I've actually not tested them yet, but I know Nate from Protoculture uses, I think these are maybe LP7, and he is blown away by how good they are. This is probably like my, what do they call it? Black Horse underground recommendation that maybe not too many people know about, although they're sold out, which says a lot. I think this is a very interesting speaker and company, and if I was demoing speakers, this is definitely a pair, something from Kali that I would take with me. Mackie speakers, I've heard they don't really translate that well. At least the 8s, the old ones, I mean, this is 15 years ago. They had way too much bass. Whoever voiced those things did not know what they were doing. I don't know, maybe they've gotten better over the years, but I did not have very good experiences with the old Mackie speakers. Head speakers, I've been hearing really good things about, although unfortunately this only has one very low review, but I think Head, if you're interested to this ribbon tweeter sound, Head is a really interesting company to check out. These DIN Audios, these 3-ways, Lit 48, I've seen these a little bit cheaper here and there. I think these could be a really interesting mid-range speaker also, because I do trust DIN Audio. They make great stuff. This is also a speaker. I haven't heard it, but I would say it's worth a demo because it's an interesting concept in its size, and I know they're smaller monitors and they sound great. DIN Audio really knows how to voice speakers. Finally, this PSI Audio, I've heard amazing things about them. Not the most affordable speaker, but I've heard they translate amazingly. They're super neutral. I've not heard that they're extremely musical, but as a mixing tool, these are supposed to be great. If you're looking in this field, I'm sure you'll do your research and order a demo pair. Oh, and before I forget, let me give you a tip on something that I think is extremely underrated and is an amazing speaker for a very affordable price. Check this out. These are the DIN Audio DM601. Even though it's a hi-fi speaker, I've owned these, I've used these as studio speakers, and they are incredible. Their voicing is flat, they're still musical, they're really good. You can get these for like $100 to $150 for a pair used. If you can afford like good studio speakers, getting a good hi-fi amp and these guys is an amazing option, and I would highly recommend you check these out. They're extremely undervalued and they compete with active studio speakers in the €500-600 range. So yeah, really good insider tip. Heard these, love them, they're amazing. So then maybe finally to touch also on the process of getting these off of Reverb. It was a seller with like very little feedbacks, etc. But the cool thing about Reverb is you're well protected as a buyer. So if you get stuff that doesn't match the description, you can get a refund. If the stuff never shows up, you get a refund, which is why I was comfortable doing it through Reverb. I would recommend checking it out because I from time to time found really good deals on Reverb. You have to kind of be looking outside the norm. If you're looking for a Jupiter 8, good luck getting a cheap one on Reverb, but something like this that's kind of flying under the radar, good source for gear like that. And yeah, absolutely worth it. I wouldn't send large amounts of money ever to like some bank account from some guy selling it on some platform without backing of guarantee and security, because you're very likely to get ripped off. Okay, I hope that this was an interesting video for you to see and share with you some opportunities and possibilities for improving your monitoring situation in your studio. I'm extremely happy with this upgrade that I've done. Thank you, Sander, for suggesting I should do this. You were right. The studio sounds incredible now. I have permanently now dismounted my former speakers because I don't need them anymore. I trust these completely with what I'm doing. If anyone wants to buy a pair of MS Blues or Amphion Amphion 115s, let me know. I'll ship them to you. Both great speakers, worked on them for years. Yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know which speakers you're using now, what you've heard that you thought was incredible, anything you tested or used that did not deliver the goods. Yeah, curious how you do with this and with your upgrading of your monitoring. I hope this video was useful to you. I'll see you on the next one. Take it easy. Bye-bye.